Hi guys, welcome back. I'm sorry about the breaks in transmission today. Somebody out there obviously doesn't want me talking to you today. This is about the 5th time my broadcast's been interrupted this morning. I've moved locations 3 times now. Signal strength is normal, and yet I'm constantly being interrupted and jammed in some way. I'm not sure who's up to what and why. The point is that we nearly went to World War III on the basis of a 30-second clip of children being washed with a hose. It just seems to me a massive overreaction and a huge underreaction from our own leadership. Anyway, to cut this video a bit short because I'm going to have to go to work, people who have mentioned this subject online and have criticised the SNP for its lack of robust opposition to going to war on this flimsy evidence. Anybody who has, like myself, mentioned this in the media in the last few days has been pounced upon and called traitors and yuns and that were trying to punish the SNP. It's all SNP bad. Well, no, it's not SNP bad. It's just puzzlement as to why our party, our MPs, didn't react to this in a different way. I have no idea what the answer to this is, but I'd like to hear the rationale behind it. Was it just because we have to accept the word and trust that the British intelligence, and I say that in inverted commas here, British intelligence on this matter was good? Remember, this is the way that we went to war in Iraq, based on a dossier which had been cobbled together on behalf of Tony Blair, which the security services and MI6 had not even really wanted to do. But in this case, I don't think anybody did any research on whether this was a genuine gas attack or not. It seemed to me that we have always been moving towards war with Russia ever since the turn of the century. The British media has been ramping up the rhetoric against Russia, the Russian threat, the incursions into our airspace and ships lurking nearby our internet cables on the seafloor. All of these things are designed to make you feel like there is some kind of existential threat from Russia. The Russians, if they were to sabotage the subsea cables connecting the internet, you would soon know about it. And there is no technology by which you can send a submarine down and hack into a fibre optic cable 400 metres below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. It just cannot be done. So I'm mystified. I'm mystified as to why our SNP members did not say, look, let's take a step back and stop the war machine for a moment and look at this video and find out if any of this is true before we start attacking people in another country. And yet none of it happened. And the SNP did nothing. In fact, on the night on which this all broke, the SNP were tweeting about Motherwell football matches, and there was Twitter coverage of all kinds of football related things. Like it was we were being diverted away, our attention being diverted from this Syria crisis to something mundane. Very puzzling, quite worrying that happened at the time. And I know a number of people in the Yes movement who are not SNP members who are being attacked for actually mentioning this. I'm mentioning it today because I'm not scared of people attacking me online and claiming that I'm being anti-SNP. I'm not. I just want to know why we didn't put up an opposition to the bombing of Syria. I want to know what the reason was. I'm not saying the SNP is bad, but I want to know why they didn't react the way I expected them to, which was to urge restraint and to oppose going to war in Iraq. And I actually put up people to say that on television shows. That didn't happen. Mrs. Sturgeon, Nicola Sturgeon, was in China at the time when all this occurred on a trade mission, which is fine, and I agree with her doing that, and I think that was necessary. I still think it's necessary to do that, in fact, more than ever. But it seemed that her media managers didn't brief her very well on this topic. And I wonder actually whether it's the fault of the media handlers in the SNP that this particular incident wasn't handled better. But whatever it is, it needs to be handled better in future, because we were on the brink of World War III and the SNP media managers were tweeting about Motherwell Football Club. Now there's something wrong there when the the party of government in Scotland, which has been in power for over 10 years, is tweeting about football matches when the country's on the verge of going to war with Russia. I mean, what is wrong with them that they would do that? And anybody, as I say, who has mentioned this to me and has come out and criticised the SNP for these actions are being lambasted online and are being hounded online. And I know a few people who've actually have been members of the SNP who have since, or not just because of this, but have actually left the party because they're not happy at the advice that the politicians are being given by the SNP's advisors. Now, I'm not saying the politicians are to blame here, but whoever's advising them may not have the same interests and goals as we do. The Yes movement is separate from the SNP, as you know, and the Yes movement is backed by the grassroots and also by business leaders. Business for Scotland, Gordon McIntyre-Kemp, a number of other people, high-profile people in the entertainment business. There are many celebrities who support the Yes movement who are not politicians. But there is a gulf opening up between the SNP and Westminster and the movement for independence in Scotland. It seems that the two are working completely different agendas at the moment. And I worry that people like Pete Wishart, who I used to admire so much, has suddenly stepped back from campaigning for independence, saying there's no point in having a referendum until we can win it. Well, how do you know you can win a referendum unless you actually call one? You can't win something if you're waiting to be certain of winning it. That's like saying, well, we have to have already won it before we call it. You can't do that. That's never going to happen in reality. There has always got to be a roll of the dice. But there is something strange going on in London. The behaviour of the SNP's MPs in London is definitely not what you would expect it to be. There is a cooling of the ardour for independence. There is a backing away. There's a denial that the SNP is even an independence party. They are playing the role of opposition in London, knowing full well that the role of opposition in London is futile because they're so heavily outnumbered. But they seem to be enjoying playing that part. But what's the purpose behind it? Are we just waiting for the next few months, playing games with Westminster, playing along with their idiotic war plans while we lay our plans for the next referendum? Or is the referendum ever actually going to happen at all? I think we're in danger at the moment of losing the support that we've built up. The Yes movement itself has kept the independence movement alive and has been responsible for converting tens of thousands of new voters to our side. And we risk jeopardising that because the party in London appears to be joining in with the establishment and becoming a part of it. That's worrying. And it's time there was a distinction drawn between what's going on in London and what's going to be happening here. It's a worrying time for all of us, and the lack of information coming from Westminster SNP is more concerning to me than almost anything else at the moment. The secrecy with which we are surrounded at the moment is making it almost impossible for us to keep our support going here. People are actually tearing up membership cards and leaving the SNP because they're so disappointed in the way that they're behaving in London. In Scotland, on the other hand, they're behaving extremely well and governing extremely well here. And yet there's this odd dissonance between what's actually happening in Scotland and what seems to be happening in London. It's very worrying, and I'm concerned that we need clarification from the SNP on what their position is on foreign invasions, foreign attacks, and what constitutes to them a reasonable cause to launch a cruise missile attack on another country without any UN mandate whatsoever and without any parliamentary debate on the subject. I mean, I know that if we were being threatened by another country, then I would want my government just to act to protect me. But we weren't being threatened. Nobody was being threatened by Syria, and this event seems to have been a complete fake. Anyway, I'm going to go now, but Those of you who know me know I don't come online and just needlessly criticise the SNP. I'm usually a supporter of theirs, although I'm not a member, and I reserve the right to maintain my neutral stance and look at this dispassionately. I am concerned at the dissonance between what's happening in London with the SNP and what's happening here. We're hearing one thing up here, but we're seeing another down in London at the moment, and it's time. Basically, it's time our MPs actually came back to Scotland and this referendum was called, and stopped the play acting and these long silences and all this secrecy. It's hurting the movement. We are losing members now. We're losing activists who have been active for the independence cause for decades, are giving up in their droves because they can't stomach what's going on in London at the moment. I'm not saying this out of hand. I'm not saying this just to hurt the SNP. This is a fact here. We're talking about long-term members of the SNP who are giving up because they don't like what's happening in London. They see it as a capitulation, as a sellout almost. So it's time it stopped. It's time our MPs stopped trading water down in London and enjoying all the benefits of the Westminster bubble at taxpayers' expense and came back here and started preparing for the referendum, because unless they do that now, all the support the Yes campaign has built up over the last few months will start to ebb away. We have a big march coming up on the 5th of May in Glasgow, and I expect that to be 70,000 strong at least. It's going to be massive, but we need to keep that momentum. And if we start going along with the Tories and their warmongering, that support's going to disappear very, very quickly. So my message today to the SNP in London is, I think it's time you came home and actually started fighting for Scotland instead of playing games with the Tories in Westminster and getting comfortable down there. I know that there's many very good MPs, SNP MPs down in London at the moment, Mary Black being one of my favourites. But I think Pete Wishart's comments about pushing back the date of the referendum to 2021 or even further than that are losing us support at the moment, and they're counterproductive. And this business with the Syria war and the potential for it to escalate out of control into a nuclear standoff between the West and Russia, and then for the SNP to start tweeting online about football is just unbelievably crass. I couldn't believe it, and a lot of other people couldn't believe it either. What were the SNP spin doctors thinking? Anyway, that's my tweet. That's my message today. I am incredulous at what's going on in London at the moment, and I know a lot of other people are too. It's time our MPs came home, and it's time that we prepared ourselves for the next referendum. And this time we need to win it. We've got business support, we've got the support of the grassroots, we've got people switching constantly at the moment from no to yes, but it's hard for us to maintain that when our own independence party in London seems to be supporting the Tories in its warmongering. I'm saying seems to be. Emphasise the fact that it seems to be doing that. I don't know why they're doing it, but the point is it looks strange and it's losing its support. Anyway, I'll need to go. I'm sure I will have stirred up a hornet's nest with this particular programme this morning, and apologise if I've offended anybody, but it needs to be said that the response to the Syria incident by the SNP in London was puzzling. It was completely baffling to most of us up here. We did not understand why they so willingly went along with the Tories on this. What was the reason behind that? What were the spin doctors and the PR men and the media handlers thinking when they came out with this party line on Syria? It's a mystery. Anyway, I shall go. I expect to get pelters for this, so I'm going to go and do some work first. See you later.